Welcome to the Lights Lounge, your weekly home for all things Las Vegas Lights FC. We'll be here every single week in 2025 on Tuesday afternoons. You can join us for a deeper dive into everything that happens on the pitch for the Lights, including match previews and analysis, alongside a special guest every single episode. Coming up, the Lights are back at Cashman Field for back-to-back home matches this week. First up, it's the third round of the U.S. Open Cup on Wednesday, April 16th against Chattanooga Red Wolves SC, followed by a league match on Saturday, April 19th against FC Tulsa. Alongside me today to analyze last Saturday's draw at Lexington SC and look forward to the next few home games, I have another member of the sizable Italian contingent here at the club, left back Gennaro Nigro. Gennaro, welcome to the lounge.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be here.
Let's jump straight into it. You are fresh back in Las Vegas after some lengthy travel from here to Lexington and back over the weekend. That match was ended in a 0-0 draw. I was watching from home, not the most exciting match to watch. What was your feeling like on the field from that game?
Yeah, I mean, to come away with a point is always a good thing away from home. We start off with the good, and obviously there's a lot to work on. Mm-hmm. We weren't very good on the ball. I think defensively we've made it a point within the first 5 matches by keeping 4 clean sheets that it's going to be difficult to break us down. But we know that we have a lot more quality than that to really put the opposition under and create chances of our own, which we've struggled with as of late. I think it's just a matter of time for us to understand what it is that we need to be doing, obviously back on the training pitch today, and then, looking forward to the games ahead. Yeah,
let's talk about the positive first. Obviously, it's 3 shutouts on the bounce now. Raiko's come back into the team and pitched 3 shutouts in a row. We have the lowest expected goals allowed, so the underlying data is backing up what's happening on the field as well. It's not just luck. What's working right now defensively for the team? Why are you guys so good and so hard to score on?
Look, we're a unit of players that work well together, and ultimately the collective is only as good as its weakest link. And right now everybody is pulling their end of the bargain, and we're being able to have this, even in transition moments where, a lot of teams in this league get caught out. We've been able to get numbers behind the ball, keep our structure, be disciplined, and understand that everyone has their own role. I'm not a huge believer in data. I think that the game is much more than that. There's a lot of intangibles and a lot of things that go unrecognized, and I think people use data as a way of, maybe cheating a little bit, skipping over the hard work. But that being said, if the data says it,
sure,
it must be a positive in our favor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can use some of those things as a guide,
absolutely,
just to sort of check in on whether things are going right, and I guess kind of keep yourself accountable as well. Like, hey, I feel like things are going well, but the data's not backing it up, or vice versa. What are some of those things that you're referencing? Like, what are the dirty bits of the game that people don't realize when you're defending a lead?
Listen, the winning fouls, the idea of, taking those extra couple seconds off the game, being able to, once the ball gets wide, to have a strong unit with inside the box. When it comes to statistics, if you can't really judge the space that a player creates for his teammates with a statistic, which for me is, if you have that quality, it's really, not only is it difficult to come by, but it's, like I said, it's really difficult to gauge it with statistical information. That being said, listen, if you have a higher XG, as they say, you're most likely going to win the game. But in the past 4 games, I'm sure teams that have played against us have had higher XGs, and we've come out with, unlucky with a loss here at home against New Mexico, where in my opinion we gifted them 3 goals, and then the past 3 games where we haven't conceded 1 and come out with 2 wins and a draw and 2 draws and a win.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's stuff that people don't really see a lot as part of the game. Like, you as a left back, you get trapped in a corner, you're put in a bad spot, there's a winger on your back, and you just kind of back into them, win a foul, get your team out of a tough situation. There aren't a lot of stats that are tracking that.
No. I think as there are more tools at our disposal, more technology, it's going to be even more important, and henceforth people are going to spend even more money to have them at their disposition. But at the same time, I guess I'm kind of a hopeless romantic in that way towards the game, where there's some things that, it's the eye test. It's the eye test. It's looking at a team and saying, listen, they're really hard to play against for X, Y, and Z, not because they have, the lowest XG G against in the league. You know?
Yeah. Does that? I mean, I know obviously you're not in the game for the award ceremony and the individual stuff. You're here to win titles, but when you see like, you know, best 11s and second, like all team second 11s, and there's left backs in there that are maybe atrocious defensively, but they happen to have eight secondary assists on the season, and so they're getting recognized. That frustrates you, like to see that kind of?
I mean, maybe when I was younger a little bit, but now I think I know what I'm capable of. I know what I bring to the table, and if people want to recognize it, so be it. If not, then I'm not for you. I'm not for you. I think ultimately, I'm happy if the team wins at the weekend. If I have an unbelievable performance and we lose, like I'm still upset. Right. You know, it doesn't change my mindset. I want to help my teammates, and by helping my teammates, I need to help myself first and foremost. Because if I do my job, I put them in a situation where they're able to do their jobs. In terms of, you know, individual awards and being recognized as a high caliber player in any league, in any competition in the world, I think it all comes down, especially in a team sport, the guys around you are the ones that allow you to do that. I think last year, you know, specifically on the left side of the field, I found myself in a really good spot where luckily I'm still playing with these guys today with Val Noel and Christian Pinzon, where we worked really well off of one another and we were able to find a groove. So the reason why I was able to play well a lot of times is because they allowed me to, and I think vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when you have a good team, you tend to land more people on those sorts of awards, and it's a team game ultimately, so trying to pick out individual performance is always a little bit muddled. Speaking of you putting in good performances, you're having to do so in slightly different looks as well. If you're bringing it back to the defensive solidity in the 0-0 draw against Lexington, it was a back three with you as a left wing back. The match before that, it's a back four as a true left back. So you've been kind of swapping between those two systems. How does your role change for the team between those two slightly different positions, but ultimately very different in terms of your role?
Still understanding that I need to do my job defensively first. I would like to think that as a defensive-minded player, my job is to make sure that my opponent does not have a fun day on the pitch. Let's put it that way. And then obviously when we have the ball, that's the best part of the game. That's the best part of the game. Being able to express yourself, being able to move forward and maybe try different things. Obviously playing as a wing back, you have more responsibility offensively to get into the box, especially when the ball is on the other side, to finish attacks off, and even have a little bit more freedom to come inside when the ball reaches the opponent's defensive half. But that being said, you know, they're both positions that I've played a lot over the past 5 to 6 years. So I find myself seamlessly moving between each. You know, the body shape is a little bit different. You know, the times to drop, the times to get forward are slightly different, but for the most part, they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand.
Speaking of going forward, obviously the team's pitched a lot of shutouts. You guys are getting a ton of results in tight games. The wins are both 1-0 wins. What needs to change or improve, or whatever word you want to use, offensively for the team to find a little bit more flow in the offensive third?
I think it's just confidence.
Okay.
I think it's just confidence. Understanding that you have the quality to do so, and not having this piano on your back when you do it. That if something goes wrong, it's okay. It's okay. You have 10 other people on the field. They're going to make sure that whatever mistake happens, it's going to be rectified. And I think also we have to realize that a lot has changed since last season. The way that our organization, the way that our team has been looked at over the past 18 months compared to the 4 years prior to that has been very different. So I think the way that people approach games against us is much different to what they were last year, where we could even come in as the underdog and say they didn't really know what they were up against last year. Now when they see Las Vegas Lights next, it's almost like, okay, we need to prepare ourselves, because I think we made a statement last year in the league. You know, I don't think a lot of people expected us to do what we did, and ultimately we came just a hair short of lifting not one but 2 trophies ultimately. But the goals are going to come. The goals are going to come. We have plenty of quality, and I think we haven't had the team at full strength either. You know, we've we just got Peterson after almost 5 months of him being signed. Visa issues, we have Budati, who's about to have his visa finalized, which adds another piece of experience and a piece of know-how in the back line. And then up top, it takes time sometimes to start clicking. Even last year, you look at our results from March to May. Yeah, we struggled. Maybe not so much with the ball, but defensively we were not so great. We were defending goals, we were leaking goals, and
Corey Bennett sold for a record transfer fee this offseason, was the leading goal scorer, didn't have a goal until June or July.
There you go.
Didn't even score in the league.
There you go.
And then by the end of the year, everyone's talking about Corey as one of the best strikers in the league. So those narratives can flip really fast.
Absolutely. That's football. Things can change in a second. But in terms of moving forward, I think we all know what kind of firepower we have up front. We have, guys who have consistently done it in this league. And then we have also guys who are hungry to prove themselves, which is maybe even a better skill to have. From my standpoint, as a guy watching them and trying to support them, I'm not worried in the slightest. It just kinks in the beginning of the season, trying to figure out what's going to work best for us moving forward, and then understanding that not every game is going to be the same. The same as last year. We had an approach where we had a possession base, and I felt they gave us a lot of respect towards the end of the year. They were almost afraid to press us because they felt as though we were going to expose them. I really think that it's going to get that way with us as the season goes. We're just figuring it out one game at a time.
Yeah, it'll take time. I find that narrative interesting. We've talked a lot about that as an organization, and from a technical standpoint about coming into 2024, a lot of people underestimate the Lights roster as of then, and maybe you theoretically have an easier time of it. You get to have that underdog mentality. As we look ahead to the next match, playing in the U.S. Open Cup against Chattanooga Red Wolves of USL League One, which is the league below us in the third division. What does the mentality look like for you? Because you do walk into some of those U.S. Open Cup games as a second division team playing a third division team. You are a favorite. You are expected to win. How does that change your mentality going into a match like that in the midweek?
Well, you approach the match like it would be any other. We can't underestimate the opponent just because they're in a division lower than we are. For them, it's a game to make a statement. It's a game to say we're here. For those players especially, to say, I can play at this level. And when you're playing against opposition who are, quote unquote, better than you are on paper, or whatever people are saying behind the scenes, that third division versus second division against first division, in any cup competition, it's always the lower division team usually raises their standards. So for us, we need to understand that we need to put in a proper performance and not take it for granted.
Do you like that cup mentality? Because we're right here in the middle, right? We have the favorite mentality playing against the likes of Chattanooga, but hopefully you win this game on Wednesday. You draw an MLS team in the second round like we did against LAFC last year, and then you get an opportunity to go prove yourself, go prove that you should be playing in MLS and should be recognized at that level.
Well, that's the beauty of cup competitions, right? And anywhere else in the world, you look at FA Cup, Carabao Cup, you look at Coppa Italia, you look at Copa del Rey. There's always these results that happen, and it brings people together. I mean, the Open Cup is I believe it's the oldest club competition in U.S. soccer history. So for us, why not have that as an objective for the end of the season, to say we're just as good as anybody else, and that starts on Wednesday by making a statement with a first win in the third round.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a great opportunity. The Open Cup, you get through that first round or two, and then you can start to get on a little bit of a magical run, and you start to snowball some momentum. Absolutely. And it's a good chance to put yourself on a national stage and get people to recognize you, both as an individual and for us as a club. And we speak about the reputation of this club and trying to grow that reputation and get people to respect this new era of the Lights under Jose Bautista ownership. And the Open Cup represents a good opportunity to do something like that.
100%.
Anything about Chattanooga that you guys are looking at that you find interesting as you start to prepare and turn the page away from Lexington?
Honestly, we'll find out tomorrow.
Yeah,
we'll find out tomorrow. We haven't had much of
a tough turn.
Much of a respite. We were back in today, just trying to get for the boys who traveled and maybe didn't get as much minutes as they would have liked, just to get some some training in their legs today. And then obviously for the players who didn't travel, that was important for today. And then for those of us who made the travel and played major minutes, trying to get as recovered as quickly as possible to make sure that we're ready for Wednesday. But listen, I think we're going to have a proper analysis tomorrow to understand what we're looking at. But ultimately, we're the ones that go onto the field. So the tactical analysis, the whatever it is that they're trying to do, it counts until a certain point. We as players have to take the responsibility and understand that even if our game plan is A, B, and C, maybe we need X, Y, and Z to win. Yeah. That's where we come in. Yeah.
For context, last year's U.S. Open Cup run was a 2-win win over Spokane Velocity. That was an overtime game in the first round, and then a 3-1 loss against Major League Soccer side LAFC at home. Any memories that stand out to you from just the mini Open Cup run last year?
Well, Spokane was a game where they put us under in the first half. We were able to score, I believe, in the 65th minute, around there, if I'm not mistaken. And then, the game is pretty much finished. And the beauty of cup competitions, we're almost sure that we've walked away with the result. And, a guy hits a shot from 25 meters out, goes through a couple of bodies and sneaks into the back of the net. And we find ourselves in a situation where we have 30 extra minutes to play.
Yeah. Which is never the ideal. As a midweek game, you're sandwiching it between league games. Yeah. Everyone's legs are heavy. You don't want to be going to overtime in those types of situations.
Definitely. Luckily, we were able to get the result, and then obviously moving into LAFC. I think from both a personal and a group standpoint, I think LAFC was almost a catalyst for us last year to say that we were struggling at the time. I think it was including the league, it was our 4th loss in a row, if I'm not mistaken. So after the game, you lost 3-1, so be it. But the performance didn't merit the 3-1 loss, let's put it that way. We went head to head with arguably the best team in the league last year, and put in really a proper performance that all of us were proud of. And it was used as a reference point throughout the season to say that doesn't really matter who we have in front of us. We can compete with anybody as long as we have the right demeanor from the get-go. And, that's what we need to do on Wednesday. Remind ourselves that regardless if we're playing LAFC, the best team in MLS, or we're playing, the worst team in USL League 2 or NASL, NISA, whatever it may be. Yeah. We have to put in a performance.
Yeah, absolutely. Quickly then, let's look ahead to FC Tulsa on Saturday. We won't spend too much time on this because I know you guys aren't even looking at that game yet until you clear the Open Cup game. It is, though, Canines at Cashman night, which comes with a couple fun promotions. You can bring your dog to the match, $1 hot dogs, free dog bandana giveaway. So a couple really serious questions here. Are you a dog or cat person?
I am most definitely a dog person. Okay. I've had dogs my whole life.
Had dogs? What type of dogs?
So growing up, I had my grandparents had a Springer Spaniel. Okay. And I had a Dachshund from the time I was 1 until sophomore in high school. Had a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, and now at home with my parents, there are 2 they're called Cockaliers, so Cocker Spaniel and King Charles Spaniel mixed. Okay. So dogs my whole life, man.
No thoughts of getting a dog while you're here as a
I would love
player?
to. I would love to. I would love to. I don't think it would be fair. Yeah. I don't think it would be fair. Too much time on the road, like this weekend, for example. Yeah. I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah, is it boarding, or you'd have to find someone to watch them? And
it's difficult.
It's hard.
It's difficult.
Yeah, did have some adoptable dogs here. Some content coming from that. There will be, Vegas Roots Rescue will be here on Saturday with some dogs that are up for adoption. I think that was tempting a few of the guys as they were taking some pictures.
Yeah. It's hard to look away when you have this cute, fluffy, adorable thing that is crawling its way to you. Yeah. It's hard to say no. Yeah. You just kind of want to take it and run.
Okay, key second question then, is a hot dog a sandwich?
No, hot dog's a hot dog. Yeah. Hot dog is its own category.
Oh, just its own category.
Hot dog's not a sandwich.
On its own. So is a burger a sandwich?
Burger's a sandwich.
A burger, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Burger's a sandwich.
Yeah. Why? Like, how come? It is still like
the bun is connected. The bun is connected.
Oh, the bun's connected.
Yeah, the bun is connected.
Sandwich, you need 2 different pieces of bread.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
All right.
Yeah. Question for you. What do you put on a hot dog?
What do I put on a hot dog?
Yeah.
Usually just ketchup.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is your like ideal hot dog?
Like spicy mustard and relish.
Okay. You're
That's
a relish
a hot dog.
guy.
That's a hot dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't. If you put ketchup on a hot dog.
Oh, really? That's criminal?
I don't know.
I feel like I'm just not a big hot dog guy, which I shouldn't be saying ahead of Dollar Hot Dog Night, but
I mean, I think hot dogs have their place. Like, for example, I'm definitely guilty of buying a hot dog or two when I'm doing a Costco run. Definitely guilty of that. Like, I'll go out of my way to get a hot dog as I'm shopping.
Yeah.
Which is the best thing ever.
Like not like buying hot dogs from like the produce section
No.
The grocery store,
you go,
the counter at the end.
Correct. You go to the end and then you start. You make your way. So you go inside, you buy a hot dog, then you go grab your cart, you go back around.
Oh, so you're eating a hot dog while you're shopping?
100%.
Oh, yeah. Wow. That's an interesting move.
Mustard relish.
Wow. I feel like it's supposed to be a post-shopping thing. I don't feel like I don't watch a lot of people walking around with it.
You should do both.
Wow.
You should do both.
Are you like walking around with a hot dog and like grabbing samples in Costco at the same time? Like, are you mixing and matching?
The samples are few and far between, but the hot dog is a staple.
Yeah, you're skipping most of the samples.
Skip because, I have to keep room for the second hot dog after I'm done.
Of course,
I'm done
can't fill
shopping.
Up too much.
Of course.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, all right. Now that we've got that important question out of the way, let's dive into your journey. Let's move past the analysis on the field and talk about you, Gennaro. So childhood in New Jersey, in Clark, New Jersey. Is
Clark, New Jersey.
Correct town.
Clark,
sometimes Wikipedia can fail you on that one. What was it like growing up there outside of soccer?
Yeah, it's a small suburban, a lot of kids in the area I grew up in, which was nice. I didn't really spend much time in the house. I lived about a couple miles away from my elementary school, 3 or 4 miles away from my middle school, and then eventually when I was going to high school, I was across the street. So everything is quite compact. I mean, for myself growing up in New Jersey, having a town of like 10,000, 12,000 people is quite small.
Sure.
We are the most highly densely populated state in the country. We have about 9 million people, so there's just people on top of one another. But yeah, man, I mean, I lived there from the time I was 7 until I was 18, so I did majority of my school there. Yeah. I still have plenty of friends back home. Yeah. And that's where my parents still live today. So whenever I have time off, that's usually where I'm spending it with friends and family. And then obviously Italian background, fluent Italian. Are your parents Italian or what's the? My pops is first generation American. Okay. So his parents were born and they were born in Italy and moved around 16, 17. Okay. So, they were, my grandfather was, around 17 when he moved to the U.S. and my grandmother around the same. My mother, on the other hand, is about 4th generation American. Okay. So my grandfather's grandparents were the ones who immigrated. Okay. So Italian influence on both sides. Yeah. Got a little mix of English, Irish, and German from my mom. Okay, interesting. But for the most part, Italian. The Italian culture and heritage. Grew up speaking Italian? No. Okay, you didn't. No. So you learned Italian when you went to Roma. Correct. Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves so we'll get to that in a second. Before we get there, you played high school soccer for Arthur L. Johnson High School. I actually didn't play. You didn't play high school soccer, so you just went to high school there. You just went to high school. Went to high school there. Yeah, that would have been a ball. But yeah. I think I was talking about that with Johnny on his episode, Johnny Rodriguez, because he played high school soccer. I was very tempted, man. I was very tempted. Did your academy not allow you to, or I didn't even ask. Yeah. It was just one of those things where it would have been really hard. Well, number one, it was a matter of understanding what was the best option at the time. I wanted to have fun and enjoy and do something with my friends because I was always kind of outside of extracurricular activities when it came to school. I was always I played for a club that was about 35, 40 minutes from where I lived, and I was there from the time I was 12. I took a little bit of a break, went to another club in between, but I pretty much every day after school I was there. Yeah. And the potential of doing something for my senior year of high school and it was tempting. Absolutely. But at the time it just didn't didn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I played high school soccer. Obviously, Johnny played high school soccer. Some of those memories are like just the best.
I can imagine.
It's just a lot of fun. But so you end up from there committing to play at Cornell University.
Yeah.
So number one, you got into Cornell. And
I did.
So smart cookie in high school, did all right in the grades.
I did okay.
It seems.
Yeah, I did okay.
If you got into Cornell.
I did okay.
I've got a nice picture here that maybe we can flash on the screen later, but I've got a picture of your signing day, which I think's quite nice. I don't think I would have recognized this as you.
No, probably not, man.
Which I don't think I'd recognize a picture of myself senior of high school either, but nice little flashback there.
Absolutely.
So you commit to Cornell.
Yeah.
There, I find these old newspaper clippings of you committing to Cornell. Johnson Soccer stand out to continue playing at Cornell, but then your next move is the Roma U19s in Italy.
Yeah.
Your Wikipedia entry is committed to play at Cornell, then Roma U19s, and there's no context on how this happened. So I need to know the story on how you go from committed to Cornell to playing at Roma.
Yeah, I was playing academy soccer in New Jersey for a club called PDA.
Okay.
And the recruitment process starts once you start your junior year of high school. Mm-hmm. So September 1st of your junior year. So I was 16 at the time. And I was playing games on the weekend like most kids my age, and was approached by the coach at Cornell at the time, whose name is John Smith. I believe he's still there. And I was speaking to a couple different universities at the time. And, you know, I think at least from myself growing up, people always explain to you that once you step foot on a campus, you'll know. And I had been on 3 or 4 visits to that point. You know, I had talked it over with my parents. At this point, it's probably May, so I'm going towards the end of my junior year, pushing towards my senior year. I hadn't committed yet. I had some offers, and then eventually I was invited to go up and see the campus. So I went up with my sister and my parents on a weekend. Nobody was there. Finals were over. It was beautiful weather in Ithaca, New York. I don't know if you've ever been up there, but
I haven't. No.
It's right on one of the Great Lakes, and it's a sight to behold in summertime. And I spoke with the coaches. They gave me a tour of the campus, and I had that feeling. I had that feeling that this is where I'm going to spend the next 4 years of my life. So it took little time at all to make a decision. You know, some logistical stuff behind the scenes to figure out if it was possible from a financial standpoint. And then I committed. And then a few weeks later, the club that I was playing for at the time, the owner of AS Roma, his name is James Pallotta, and he had a bunch of connections with some clubs here in the U.S. Okay. Crossfire Premier, Patiadoris, I believe PDA, the club I was playing for, and a couple others that are slipping my mind at this point. Some way or another, they reached out to the club that I was playing for, the director, and said, do you have any players that you would like to send over to come and train?
Okay.
So he had told me about this months prior, and it kind of slipped my mind. Committed to go to school at the end of June, and a couple weeks later, he sends me an itinerary for the trip. So at that point, I'm thinking in my head, what a great opportunity to see how I match up against kids my age around the world. I had actually just come back from a trial at a different club in Italy. So I had an idea more or less of where I was at, and, you know, ultimately what I wanted. I think from the time I was very young, I wanted to see what I could do and push myself to the limit. And for me, that was going to Europe, specifically to Italy, with the background. And
of course.
It just kind of made sense. Exactly. Yeah. So I went there, you know, did a week training. I think it was 7 to 10 days. And right before I left, there was a liaison who was helping myself and a teammate of mine who I had went with paperwork and logistical stuff, because at the time I didn't speak the language. Okay. And he kind of pulled me aside and was like, "Listen, I've been hearing some whispers around the club that you impressed. I don't know what's going to happen, but, you know, you should be proud of yourself. Like, give yourself a pat on the back." So for me, that was already enough. Yeah. That was already enough. I was going back home, ready to start my senior year of high school, ready to play my last year of academy soccer, getting ready to prepare myself for the college season. And 3 or 4 months later, we're doing like a fitness test around the field, and the director is on a go-kart, and he comes and like basically drives in front of me and tells me like, you need to come to my office after training. It's probably October, November at this point, and he explains to me that that they had intentions of offering me a contract. So at that point, it was probably 4 or 5 months back and forth of trying to decide what to do. My mom is a teacher, so
this is during your senior year of high school.
During my senior year of high school. So around November, the panic began of trying to get passport in order, trying to see if this was possible, understanding if this is really what I wanted to do, the sacrifice that I would have to make. And I'm not gonna lie to you, there were some sleepless nights,
I'm sure,
trying to figure out what the best thing moving forward was. And ultimately, I probably didn't handle it the best way possible. So June rolled around, and the contract was in order, but the passport hadn't arrived yet. So I had the passport, I had the contract in my hand, but without the passport, there was no way for me to sign it.
Yeah.
And they do it a little bit differently now, but the development academy a couple of years ago, they used to have a showcase at the end of the year. So my college coach was there to watch me play, and somebody, I don't know who, came up to him and said, I heard that your player is going to Roma.
And you haven't talked to your college coach yet?
And I haven't spoken to him yet.
Oh, gosh.
So I wind up getting concussed in that game.
No way.
And I have a angry Englishman calling me and screaming at me over the phone, telling me I'm this, that, and the third. And, definitely didn't go about it the best way. But, water under the bridge. And luckily he and I were able to have a proper conversation. And, he understood. But probably the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of me making a decision was if I was on campus, I know for a fact I would have been thinking every single day what could have been. Yeah. And that would have eaten me alive. Yeah. So with my family and my friends, I decided that this was the best thing to do. And if I could go back and do it over again, I would do it 10 times.
Yeah. Because I'm looking at the stats, right? And you play there for about 2 years at Roma, maybe touching on 3. You play a lot for the U19s, play a lot in Primavera. What was the experience like? Because you arrive and don't speak the language at all, or you have some basic Italian?
Yeah, that's gotta be
basic. Overwhelming. We talk to a lot of guys about that right now, right? Like we get a lot of international guys here that arrive and don't speak great English, and that is like a really tough part that impacts your performance in the field when, 1, you can't communicate with people, 2, you don't feel settled in the area, you can't make friends. So what was those first couple months like as you tried to figure it out?
I just tried to immerse myself as quickly as possible. Yep.
Were you living alone?
No, I was living at the facility actually. So I was living at the training ground. Okay. Which I think there's no greater immersion than that. Yeah. Right. Almost too much. Yeah. Almost too much. But I kind of made it a point to myself that it was already so important to me that I learned. I had a basis. Nothing extraordinary. I could maybe get by with simple greetings and understanding, simple phrases, but nothing beyond that. Yeah. So my teammates during the day would be going to school, and I would really have the morning to myself because I had already finished high school at that point. Yeah. So I would take it upon myself to read the newspaper. Oh, man. And I would just write down every single word that I didn't know, which was the whole page at first. So I would spend hours in the morning just trying to translate these pages. And obviously when you're forced to speak, that threshold of fear is overcome rather quickly. At least in my case, I was lucky enough to also find people that were accepting and appreciated the fact that I was trying. Yeah. And luckily there was somebody at the club who worked as a translator. He spoke over 10, 12 languages, whatever it may be. And the first meeting I had with him, he said, listen, you're already ahead of most of the guys that come here. And then also for myself, my name carries a certain weight for me. You know, I'm named after my grandfather, and the fact that I didn't speak Italian before that really kind of, it was like a thorn in my side.
Yeah.
Because it was almost it was a part of my family lineage, my heritage that I wasn't able to access.
Yeah.
So it was so important to me, not only to learn how to speak, but learn how to speak properly. And I mean, not being able to communicate is like my biggest fear.
Yeah.
Not being able to express myself the way that I want to, especially on the field. I mean, listen, if you have good players around you, the ball kind of speaks for itself. But if you have a question or you have a concern, or those first couple of months were a bit daunting. But you don't really have time to rest on your laurels or feel sorry for yourself. You kind of just have to get on with it. And now, I mean, I speak Italian every single day. Yeah. I really have found a different side of myself that I wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, backing up to what you said about like the fear of getting something wrong and having to speak out loud and stuff. I mean, I think that's ultimately my experience with it as well. I mean, when I played college soccer, it was a heavily international team, so we had guys in the same boat. I have done some Spanish language immersion in Costa Rica in the past, and you are always going to end up being the butt of some jokes, like in the locker, especially in a soccer locker room. Like that's just how it goes, and you have to be willing to embrace that. But for the most part, like you will actually get made fun of more for not trying.
Absolutely.
Like people just appreciate the fact that you're trying, and I think 100%. We often forget that, like, you know, you get obsessed with getting it right and getting the verb tense right and getting the word choice right. But like ultimately, as long as you can get your meaning across, guys will like interact with you 100%, and like help you out.
100%.
So you have to kind of just dive into it, and that's the only way.
Honestly, man, I think my naivete in that sense almost helped me. You know, this idea of being so gung-ho about the whole experience. Yeah. I was so excited and so enthralled with everything that was going on that even if people were saying things and, you know, poking fun, I didn't really care too much. Yeah. You know, it was so important for me to be able to do that. And, you know, one of the best compliments I've ever been given is actually from my grandmother. You know, when I came back, she hadn't seen me for 6 months, and I came back and I was able to have a conversation with her in Italian. She's like, "You have no accent." Yeah. You have no accent? How is that possible? For me, that's
the coolest thing.
It makes me so happy.
Yeah. So let's talk about what you got out of it from a soccer standpoint as a professional player. Walk me through what that experience was like once you get settled into the rhythm. What was the setup like? Were you just playing with the U19s? And how did that work over those couple years there?
It was like learning how to walk again. It's like learning how to walk again. I arrived and it was like I'd never played football before. And there were a lot of days where I was scratching my head, especially in the beginning where I wasn't able to ask questions properly. You know, the coaches were saying things, players were doing things, and I was just maybe a little bit over my head in the first couple of months. As time went on, I started to understand not only what was being asked of me, but my biggest issue was they didn't know what position I was. So when I went there initially, they saw me as a midfielder. Okay. It's like a number 8 box to box. And once I arrived, they started putting me in different places, almost like a Band-Aid. Let's put it that way. You know, we need a center back in training. We need a right back. We need a left back. And honestly, I was used to that playing here in the U.S. You know, I was always playing with older guys, and a lot of times it was just for me to fill a hole in the team. Yeah. And it honestly helped my development because I was able to see different areas of the field. I was able to develop different skill sets that I probably wouldn't have if I was only playing a certain position for a long time. Yeah. But that being said, when I was getting to the point of saying, okay, I need to establish myself in a certain position, it was difficult because they were harping on the fact that tactically I wasn't prepared enough, but every day I was changing positions, so it was really difficult for me to work only on one position and say this is what I need to work on from A to Z. Yeah. So it almost took 12 months for me to solidify my position as a fullback. But in terms of knowledge and you know, different outlook on the game, and
Yeah.
I think Italian football as a whole is very much different than a lot of other ideologies.
Yeah.
Where this idea of defending is going to win you games rather than goals are going to win you games.
Yeah.
And
Very tactical, very structured.
One thing that really I didn't understand in the beginning, but now if I were to set up a team and be a coach, I would rather have a player who's disciplined tactically than a player who could win me the game. Because
that's a very Italian outlook on
because
the game.
I know that you're going to give me a 7 out of 10 every single game.
Sure.
Whereas another player might give me a 9 and then a 2 and then a 6 and then a 1 and then a 9 and then a 10.
Yeah.
Football is about consistency. Football is about giving yourself the best chance to win, and usually that's the team that makes the least amount of errors.
Yeah.
And I think I was a player that made a lot of mistakes tactically because I wasn't as prepared as my teammates who were doing it from the time that they were 6, 7 years old. I was coming from a completely different country, completely different continent, and this idea of being compact and cover and all of these things were foreign subjects to me. And that's nothing against U.S. soccer at all.
Yeah.
They're just different ways of looking at the game.
Yeah.
And
a superstar kid coming out of Brazil playing Jogo Bonito is going to have the same problems.
100%, man.
Walking into an Italian academy
100%.
and being asked to play in that way,
100%.
it's just different ways of playing.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But that being said, I think through difficulty, your eyes are open to certain things that you wouldn't be able to unless you go through it firsthand. And especially in a place where there's so much history and there have been world champions and European champions and real life superstars.
Yeah.
I think my second day I walked into a training session and I have a Premier League and a Premier League winner in Edin Dzeko and a World Cup winner in Daniele De Rossi sitting in front of me, which is hard to. At the time, it was normal, but now looking back, if somebody was to put me in that situation now, it would probably be a little bit different. I was 18 at the time, and I was like, okay, this is normal. This is reality now, and it was so exciting. Yeah, it was so exciting. I couldn't wait to go to training every single day. I couldn't wait.
Were you a Roma fan before you went, or are you a Roma fan now because of your experience?
I'm a Roma fan now because I was there. My first experience at Stadio Olimpico was, I had goosebumps for 90 minutes. Yeah. It's people breathe, eat, live that team throughout the city. People are selling their shirt off their back in order to get tickets to go to the stadium. People are selling their cars in order to go support the team at the weekend. Yeah. And when you're inside that type of environment, it's impossible not to be enveloped and wrapped into it. Yeah. I had a nerve-wracking day in the airport yesterday watching Roma tie Lazio. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I think what maybe listeners don't realize is that there's a huge Italian contingent, like I said off the top of the podcast here at the club. Not really on the playing side, but obviously with Antonio Nocerino as the head coach. You've also got John Nelia, our sporting director, who's a massive Juve fan. You've got Gianmarco, one of the people on our business side, massive Inter Milan fan. And then Sean McIntosh, who we had on the last episode of the show, is a massive Lazio fan, who is the main rival for Roma. So anything to say to those guys? Any thoughts on how the current season's going for Roma?
Only team unbeaten in 2025. That's all I can say.
Okay, there you go. You heard it here. Okay, let's talk about the end of your time at Roma. So your time sort of comes to an end, and you make the move to Potenza to play in Serie C. What was that move like? What was the reasoning behind that move, and then what was it like when you arrived in Potenza?
Yeah, it was. I think it was a strange time for everybody in the world at that time. It was
in the middle of the pandemic. Right?
Middle of the pandemic. I was in the middle. Really in the midst of my second year, where I was just starting to establish myself within the team when the pandemic started. I had probably had a run of 4 or 5 starts, which I hadn't had in the season prior to that. So timing was a bit unlucky. Obviously, you know, a world.
Yeah, bigger things going on at the time.
Absolutely,
but definitely not the most ideal timing for your professional football
definitely
career.
Definitely not. So for a lot of myself and my teammates, you know, the most important portion of the Primavera season is the playoffs, where sporting directors, scouts from whether it be Serie A clubs, Serie B clubs, even Serie C clubs, they come and watch. And that's really the showcase to see whether or not the club that you're with will continue and prolong your contract, or whether you start your journey elsewhere. And for all of us, that kind of got cut short. So coming back after 3 months being home towards the end of June, where we're getting tested every single day and to make sure that there's not an outbreak within the club, I didn't really know what the next move was, because I still had another year on my deal. But I was too old to play with the Primavera. I had just turned 20. So only option at the time was to go on loan, and I didn't really have substantial amounts of appearances and minutes compared to a lot of my teammates who found clubs rather easily. Within a couple of weeks, they had options. They could almost pick where they wanted to go, whereas I was waiting 6 to 7 weeks to try to see if I was going to find a club. And when Potenza called, it was almost like it's now or never. It's now or never. I didn't know if anything was going to come, but I had spoken to my representatives and I said, listen, if a club sees me in a role of impacting from the get-go, that's where I want to be. Because I was, at that point, I had a year and a half of experience under my belt. I had adapted to Italian football. I was ready to, make leaps and bounds rather than, just steps.
Especially in Europe, you're 20 at that point. I mean,
absolutely,
the shelf life is short.
Very short, short. So I wound up signing for Potenza, and in the meantime, I had actually broken my foot, and I didn't know about it. So I played my entire first season there with nicks and naggles, whether it be like a little muscle strain because I was running improperly, or not being able to get out of bed because my foot was twice the size it should be. Finishing the first year where there was a lot of turmoil within the club. We battled relegation. We went through 3 coaches.
Oh my gosh.
In my 2 years there, I went through 7 coaches.
Wow.
So lots of things behind the scenes going on, and the first coach who approached me was gone after 6 games. So especially in lower divisions, it's less and less likely that a coach is going to lean on younger players because they look to experience to get results. And it was difficult for me to establish myself within the team, not only with the injuries but also the what was going on within the club, the results that we were getting, and I mean, when
you're a team battling relegation in the 3rd division, like it's a difficult thing for a head coach to come in and say, I'll play this 20-year-old left back instead of my 32-year-old veteran that's been in and around this league and is going to be hard-nosed and is going to break some ankles out there.
Listen, they know that their job is contingent upon the results that they get at the weekend. And if I'm the difference between them winning and losing a game, they're not going to think twice. Because
they're not going to be there long enough to see you be a 24-year-old mainstay of the team.
Of course.
They're not really invested in your long-term development
so,
at that point.
First year was topsy-turvy. I came home for the summer, and I got some scans done, and my doctor explained to me that I had 2 broken bones in my foot. I had a broken navicular bone and a broken heel. And her first question was, how did you play for 12 months like this? And you just get on with it, I guess. I was in a boot for about 3 months. The bones hadn't completely healed, and I was told to do another month of rehab and then get another scan done before the season started. Did just that. Scan was clean from what I could tell.
Good.
Started the season really well, and then the pain came back. And I was I was a bit lost. A bit lost. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I have doctors telling me that it's in my head. I have people telling me that it'll pass. But I was having a hard time getting out of bed in the morning. And eventually I found some results through my own research, and sometimes when you're in an MRI machine, where my fracture was in my foot, the way that you sit, it kind of is hidden. So I had to get a CAT scan. And once I got the CAT scan, I showed it to our team doctor, and it kind of lit up like a Christmas tree.
Oh, man, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I see where the problem is now. So I had to go home. I got surgery. The problem was rectified, luckily.
Yeah.
And then I came back for the end of the season 3 coaches later and in the same position we were in the season beforehand, where we are, I believe, 6 points away from the direct relegation slot in the league. So there's one team that goes down automatically, and then there's 2 other teams that go down via the play out. So at this point, we're in the play out positions. And my contract is expiring. I haven't played substantial minutes again over the past 2 seasons, basically. A culmination of 15 to 20 appearances in the first season, and then more or less the same in the second. A lot of appearances off the bench, maybe 10 starts within those 2 years. Whereas I was going into it saying my objective was to almost get back to where I was. To have 2 solid years with Potenza and then see what would happen. Didn't go that way. But luckily, the experience that I had within a changing room where I had people who could be my father was something that I have taken with me to this day, and it definitely allowed me to mature very quickly within the game, because I think I've always been I think I've been wise for my years. I think my parents have taught me to think for myself and have my own thoughts from the time I was young. But understanding the game from a life or death perspective is a different feeling. Like you have people next to you who might not be able to feed their kids if we don't win at the weekend. Which is a different kind of feeling. Pressure. It's just looming over you at all times. It's this constant. I had people follow me home, and death threats on my door, and things that you would never imagine in your wildest dreams. And I was just a couple months shy of my 21st birthday. So those things really put everything into perspective. So I'm beyond grateful for that opportunity, and having lived that type of experience. It's difficult to put value on it, because there's always light at the end of the tunnel. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. Going through 7 coaches, almost getting relegated twice to a non-professional league. It's one of those things that stays with you.
Absolutely. I mean, it comes to mind for me, right? Like USL announcing that they're going to institute promotion relegation.
Finally, huh?
I mean, what's your thoughts on that, and how promotion relegation in the U.S. will introduce any sort of different element, having lived the true.
I think it's exciting, man. I think it's exciting. I think for every game has meaning. Every game has meaning. Let's take this weekend, for example. Did we have the best performance? No. Are we going to have a worse performance throughout the year? I don't think so. But we came away with a point. And when you have to tally up every single one that you've earned throughout the season, that one's probably going to matter. And I think when it comes down to staying in a division or potentially promoting to a new division, that single point that you gained away from home is going to mean something sooner rather than later. And that's exciting. That's exciting. That means that every single minute matters. Every single minute matters. Because if you can rest on your laurels and sneak into an eighth spot and make the playoffs, you have every chance to win. But
especially in the USL system of just single games, you got to win 4 games. You got to get hot.
Especially, man. Especially.
You see it a lot in this league. You see a lot of little underdog runs.
I think we felt it last year. We felt it last year. We had a 11 game span without losing. Then we had another 8 game span without losing, and then if a set piece goes our way against Colorado, I think we lift the trophy.
Yeah, playing a final at home.
Exactly.
So.
But yeah, I think it's the way to move forward for U.S. soccer. I think it's exciting for the rest of the world too to finally see a system being implemented that's been used for hundreds of years in other countries, and ultimately, it means more money.
True.
It means more money. It means everyone you have the potential to probably double your franchise's worth in a single season, which is not possible right now, and especially within the USL.
And for you as a player.
To
play your way. I mean, because this ultimately is your career. You ultimately are earning money and paying your bills by playing football on the weekend. And you get yourself promoted, there's clauses in your contract that escalate your salary, all those kinds of things. So it puts something on the line. And there's clauses in your contract if you go down because there's less revenue and all those kinds of things. So there's that individual pressure on it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely positives and negatives to it, but I am 150% for it.
Yeah, amazing.
If there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, amazing. Well, it's going to be exciting when that comes in. Let's fast forward real quick. We're starting to run out of time here, but I want to talk quickly about your last stop before Las Vegas. So you end up then, end of your time at Potenza, you leave Italy, come back to the U.S. with the Real Salt Lake organization, with the Real Monarchs. Talk me through what that was like, that experience there, playing in MLS Next Pro. You did get one appearance for the first team while you were there, and then briefly went on a loan, and then made one appearance and then came back. So just quickly walk me through what that time was, what the decision was like to come back to the U.S.
Yeah, like I said, the experience at Potenza was although positive, a lot of things to take into consideration in terms of what I wanted not only my professional life to look like, but also my personal life.
Yeah.
I never really thought when I moved away when I was 18 that I would be coming back so soon. I always had it in my head that I would be in Europe for the next 15 years if I was lucky.
Interesting.
But that being said, I think the stars kind of aligned and worked. It worked in my favor, where I was able to come back in a situation where there was potential to break into an MLS first team.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, that did not happen. But again, another experience that taught me there's always something around the corner, and understand that what you're doing today might not necessarily have the most impact for your short-term goals, but ultimately your long-term goals. Because my time within the Real Salt Lake organization was interesting, because I was playing with kids who were 6-7 years younger than I was, and we were on at different stages of our development, and they weren't really focused on winning. Like, that wasn't really their priority. Whereas for me, it was almost a non-negotiable.
I mean, you're coming from an environment where winning was life or death.
Exactly. So I had some frustrating times. It was hard for me to accept some things, but ultimately, I left there with maybe a bitter taste in my mouth on how everything unfolded, but it's led me to where I am now.
Yeah, absolutely. So then you find yourself in Las Vegas in 2024 as part of a very rushed roster build.
Yeah.
Before we talk about everything with there, just what was the call? What was the initial talk with your agent, your representatives, and the sporting director here, John Nelia? How did you end up here?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it briefly. I had a loan spell in Holland that didn't go to fruition. I was there for 7 months, played one game, got sent off within 29 minutes.
Oh God!
Not the best start for myself.
Inauspicious, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. So the loan was ultimately cut short, and I came back to Utah, and the club made it apparent from the get-go that they wanted me off of the books.
Yeah.
So it was just understanding what the next move was. It was quite a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Where things happened rather quickly. I got the call from my agent saying that Las Vegas was interested, and ironically enough, the only USL game that I watched from the season before, rather, and the only USL team that I watched, not the USL game, was Las Vegas Lights against Real Salt Lake in the Open Cup.
Yeah.
Where I saw llamas on the field and people sitting in swimming pools.
Yeah.
So immediately when he told me that Las Vegas Lights was interested, I told him that was not possible.
No chance.
And he almost reassured me and doubled down that he said, listen, I spoke to the sporting director. They're looking to do things differently. He's going to reach out to you.
Yeah.
Be open.
Okay.
And I'm a firm believer in feeling, and when you should listen to your instincts, and your gut usually isn't wrong.
Yeah.
And after I spoke to John on the phone, I just felt good about it. And I think I needed something to kickstart what felt like maybe 23-year-old me would have said were 4 lost years. But I think 24-year-old, almost 25-year-old me would say those were 3 necessary years to understand what it is that I want out of my life, not only as a footballer but as a person. And ultimately, they've brought me to where I am today.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you say that moment coming back from Holland, having a hugely unsuccessful loan spell that has to be an incredibly frustrating time there. You come back, Real Salt Lake shows you the door pretty unceremoniously, I imagine, at that point. Is that like do you look back at that and go, that was the low point? Or
I'm going to be quite frank with you. I actually really enjoyed my time in Holland.
Okay, yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I went into it after 6 months of playing with an MLS Next Pro team.
Yeah.
Where there really was no ambition to win.
Yeah.
Going into it, I said to myself, I'm moving to a new country. I'm going to learn about a new playing style, and it gives me every chance to grow.
Yeah.
Even if I don't play one game, I'm going to be in a team that's competing to win the league, where there's players who have had much more experience than I have, that they can teach me something. I'm going to be challenged every single day.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what I wanted at the time, because I just didn't feel challenged within training. I felt like I could stroll through things, and not that it was making me complacent, because I don't think I'm that type of character, but unfortunately, you're a product of your environment.
Yeah. And
when things inherently become easier, you maybe take your foot off the gas a little bit. So having that, my back up against the wall and trying to climb out mentality really, I think, helped me in the long run. And
it's like refreshing at that point.
Absolutely,
in your career.
absolutely. And I think the type of, I think Dutch football and Italian football, believe it or not, actually complement each other. Because I think Italian football is the most demanding tactically without the ball, and I think Dutch football is extremely demanding tactically with the ball. So I was able to see another avenue, see another type of way of viewing the game, and I'm obsessed with football. I love football. Like I get giddy talking about it. And for me, ultimately, didn't go as I would hoped, but I look back and say that was unbelievable. Because I was learning constantly, and that's what I want.
So then you end up here in Las Vegas, and for pretty much the first time in your career, probably since you were playing high school club soccer, you play an entire full season as a bang-on, like name and ink on the team sheet starter. Played 34 games in 2024, over 2,000 minutes across all competitions. How satisfying was that to finally look back on a season and go, like I've made it, more or less, right? Like I've actually had a full season under my belt.
Yeah, just I think you hit the nail on the head. Satisfaction. I mean, after our last game last year, I mean, I think we played the best football in the league last year. Especially from where we started to where we ended. You know, it was a special process with a special group of people, and ultimately not to be able to lift the trophy was very, very, very unfortunate, and it took a week or two to metabolize and digest. But ultimately, what my idea in my head when I came to Las Vegas was to reset and allow myself to enjoy the game. And I think that luckily within this club, people have allowed me to grow and to be myself. Because I think at times I was pretending to be somebody that I wasn't in the other clubs that I was at, and it ultimately hurt me when I was on the field.
Yeah.
Whereas now I feel like I walk around the building and I can say what's up to you guys, or walk in and have a conversation with pretty much everybody, and I know familiar faces, and it feels good. Also to come back to a place which I've bounced around a lot. I've lived in 3 different countries. I haven't really had any type of solitude within the past 6-7 years of my life and my career. And coming back to a place where you feel wanted and are appreciated is a beautiful feeling.
Yeah, amazing. And being part of, you referenced it earlier, like you saw Las Vegas with the Llamas on the field, and we're like, no, absolutely not. And you come in at the time when Jose Bautista buys the team in the offseason, and it's building block, it's building the attendance back up, it's building the buy-in from the community back up, it's making people across the league respect this team, and that's like, I think a satisfying journey to be on as well for us on the business side, for you guys on the field, for the coaching staff, for John Elliott, recruiting players. I mean, everyone. It's satisfying to put those blocks in place and keep building this club to where it should be. And I think what Las Vegas deserves at the end of the day.
That credibility factor.
Yeah.
That credibility factor to be a staple both on and off the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Gennaro, thanks for the time. We could talk for probably another hour about a lot of things, but we'll cut it off at some point here. You can see Gennaro and the boys in action twice at home this week at Cashman Field. First up in the U.S. Open Cup against Chattanooga on Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. And then for Canines at Cashman on Saturday, April 19th, also at 7:30 p.m. Bring your pups, grab a $1 hot dog, get a free dog bandana. We'll see you at Cashman Field this week. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.